The Emperor's a nice bloke, but he has some weird kids. Let's talk about martial excellence, pink power armor, and giving in to the excess of your darkest desires with an overview of Emperor's children in 40k. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking Chaos once more, and today we're going to be doing an overview of Emperor's children in the recently unleashed Chaos Codex. We'll be going over their unique Legion rules, a particular focus on Lucius the Eternal and Noise Marines, talking about some of the strongest stuff they can field, and finishing up with one successful army list. In 9th edition, Emperor's Children do seem to be one of the stronger Chaos Legions that you can field in Codex Chaos Marines. A very usable Legion trait, plenty of Slanesh goodness, and some very powerful stratagems and options put them in quite a good place. So let's see what these drugged up Sonic killers can achieve then, and go through their rules one by one. First up, within the Emperor's Children army, they all get the Legion trait Flawless Perfection, but above and beyond that they are a Legion who's dedicated to Slanesh. Everything in the Emperor's Children army gains the Slanesh keyword, and everything that has the option to buy a mark of Slanesh must do for 15 points on all the core and character units. Arguably, being restricted to just one god is a bit of a weakness. It means that there's certain units that you can't use, say the Khorne Lord of Skulls, and it does mean that if you would have preferred to upgrade, say, a Dreadnought with a mark of Tzeentch or a Legionary squad with a mark of Khorne, then you can't. Though I would say that arguably the Slanesh mark is perhaps the single strongest out of any of them in the Codex. It lets a whole load of units fight first, but also it does mean that you can be the target of really quite powerful buffs, including a 5+ Feel No Pain from a spell, and things like that powerful Dark Apostle Advance and Charge Prayer. For some units it might be a slight weakness, but it is quite a big advantage for anything that isn't a core or character unit and gets the Slanesh keyword anyway. They can often be the target of the 5+ Feel No Pain spell, or certain stratagems and things that wouldn't normally be able to target them. Not bad for things like Possessed or Warp Talons, for example. Next, their Legion trait is Flawless Perfection, and I wouldn't say it's maybe the single strongest Legion trait out there, but it will consistently help out the army through the game. First up, you ignore any or all hit roll modifiers, weapon skill or ballistic skill penalties. Really quite good in 9th edition when there's quite a lot of -1 to hit going around, both on unit datasheets and on things like dense cover. Plus it makes certain weapons just much more efficient in Emperor's Children than otherwise. Say for example, Terminators with Power Fists will still be hitting on 3s, and infantry are going to ignore the penalty for moving and firing with heavy weapons, or advancing and shooting with assault ones. I think it also means that you get to ignore the barrage penalty for the Relic Whirlwind Scorpius when that one does get its keywords updated, so slightly better artillery than some. The second part is also a direct damage buff as well, which is quite handy. 6 is to wound across the army, gains an extra AP both at ranged and melee. It's not the biggest buff in the world, but to be honest, in a world of Armour of Contempt, where saves can get very high indeed, it really can be quite helpful. This one's going to have most effect when you're wounding things on 5s or 6s with low AP attacks. That'll mean that you get a decent conversion to extra AP out of those hits, and it's going to be a bit more meaningful on things without loads of AP to start with. Certainly doesn't hurt on things like, say, Combi Bolters or Noise Marines Sonic Blasters. Should be good for at least a few more wounds over the course of the game, and particularly against high save foes. Next up we have the Emperor's Children secondary, Adorn the Canvas Eclectic. I must admit I don't think it's super strong. It's a no mercy no respite one that you score victory points at the end of each battle round. 1 point for each of controlling more objectives than the opponent, killing more enemy units at range than they killed of yours, killing more enemy units in melee than they killed of yours, and the same for killing characters in either way. If the stars align and you get all of those, then you get even 1 extra victory point as well. But to be honest, if that's happening, you're probably winning the game quite heavily anyway. In general, I think it'd be a fairly strong one if your opponent's got absolutely loads of multiple small units that you might just kill more than them incidentally. But particularly for the scoring the objectives one, it's not very helpful that it happens at the end of the battle round. It's a lot more powerful if you roll to go second than if you happen to go first. Overall, I'd argue it's not the strongest, but usable against the right enemy. You might often just be better with grind them down though, as that just means you've got to kill more enemies than them in any way, and not mess around with exactly how you kill them. Next up we have the Emperor's Children Stratagems, and overall I do think that they're really quite strong indeed. Multiple different options for amped up melee damage, and a lot of other really handy ones besides. First up there's Cruel Bladesman for 2 CP, AP in melee becomes better by 1 for any Heretic Astartes, pretty good for any dangerous combat unit that's got not so much AP, Possessed or Warp Talons maybe come to mind. 2 CP is just a little bit on the steep side though. For 1 CP we have Honour the Prince, This one's really quite a nice mobility one. You apply it to a core or demonkin unit, and they get to auto advance 6 inches, or when they make a charge roll, they charge d6 plus 6 inches. Both parts of that are pretty great, to be honest. Sometimes you might just need to lock in an advance roll to get to an objective or something, or to get in range of something when you're firing assault weapons, perhaps. But really, I think the charge roll is perhaps the outstanding thing here. It means that you're very likely indeed to make a charge from reserve. Maybe good for some deep striking Terminators, or basically 100% guarantee a charge that's anywhere less than 7 inches. Really quite good if it's absolutely crucial. I think theoretically you could use both of those on one unit in the same turn if you had that Slanesh prayer for advance and charge. In theory that could give you some infantry moving 6 inches with an auto 6 advance, so 12 in the movement phase, and then d6 plus 6 in the charge phase, averaging you something like a 21-inch charge. Emperor's Children can get across the board very fast indeed when they're honouring the prince, it would seem. Next, for one command point, there's Excess of Violence. This one counts an infantry unit as being in wanton slaughter instead of the others till the next command phase. Usually on things hitting on a 2+, that's going to be a 25% buff to melee damage. I think often for the investment that's going to outweigh Cruel Bladesman, and it's quite de-restricted as well, applying to any infantry. Next, for one command point, there's Incessant Disdain. This one's a really nice one to have across the army, as it means a core demonkin or character unit can heroically intervene, and if the character unit does, then it gets a 6-inch heroic intervention as well. It's really good for basically creating a no-go zone around your forces that your opponent can't afford to venture into unless they decide that they want to be in combat with you, and with plenty of scary melee units in the Chaos Codex, that's often not a good idea. Super nice on characters, Fighty Demon Princes and Lord Discordants will absolutely love this. With their big bases, it means that the opponent might not be able to get anywhere near them, unless they suddenly want the character to step up and slap them dead. Next, for 2 CP, we have Death Ecstasy. This one's an infantry unit fighting in death if it's not already fought. Basically, this is the one to use when you've got a scary melee unit. It just gets charged by something else that's going to hit it first. Turning it on for 2 CP means you might be able to drag down a lot of the foe with them. Really good if it's something that's hard hitting but fragile, maybe something like Sisters of Battle Repentia units. Next, for 2 CP, we have Soporific Gaze. This is a character one which makes one enemy unit fight last within 3 inches. A bit pricey, but that can be absolutely game changing if you get it off at the right time. If you're doing the charging, then it basically prevents your opponent from interrupting. That way you'll be able to fight with at least 2 of your units across the board before they get to strike back. And if you're being charged, then it basically means that you get a free interrupt. And with a lot of fights first with Mark of Slanesh around, it means you might even be able to get multiple combats fought on your side before the opponent gets to hit back. Next, there's another combat buff called Combat Elixirs. This one is +1 strength and +1 weapon skill when a unit fights. As it's 2 CP, it is a bit of a pricey one, and you basically do need to be able to use both parts of that to really make it worth it, I think. Characters usually hit on 2s, so they're usually not going to be worth it. I think maybe the optimal target for this might be something like a Chosen Squad, for example. Maybe they're attacking something with a lot of Toughness 5 units. +1 strength and +1 to hit means they might be able to wound on 3s and hit on 2s. But to be honest, I think that this one's quite niche as a melee damage buff, and it's only really going to matter when you can make use of both bits. Kind of a shame that it's core locked. Things like Warp Talons or Possessed might quite like that. Finally, for 1 CP, we have Excruciating Frequencies. This one's the Noise Marine one with their sonic weapons. Use it when a unit shoots, and 6 is to wound cause 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 6. Usually that should generate you something like 2 to 4 mortal wounds on most squads, and as a bonus, the enemy can't overwatch or set to defend either. Not too bad if you just need a little bit of extra sting in the tail when your Noise Marines fire, maybe to overcome something with high toughness or high saves. Overall, I must admit I do quite like the Emperor's Children stratagems. Pretty much all of them are usable, even if a couple are quite niche. Loads of ways to manipulate the fight phase and have the opponent hitting on the back foot. The right one of these at the right time could be absolutely brutal. Next up, the Emperor's Children have a fair few character upgrades as well. 6 Warlord Traits and Relics to please Slanesh. In general, I found the Warlord Traits a lot tamer, to be honest. I'm not sure I really rate any of them particularly higher than things like Flames of Spite out of the core table, though I guess a few of them could be situationally useful. Going through quickly, we've got Stimulated by Pain, +1 attack for each wound lost to a maximum of 3, and fights on death if he didn't fight in combat. I guess it's okay on a big fighty thing like a Lord Discordant or a Demon Prince, but as I mentioned, you might be better off with something like Flames of Spite to just make their melee damage better in the first place. Next there's Intoxicating Musk. Enemy units less than 3 inches are -1 to hit in melee. I guess theoretically that could also give some protection to other squads that you charge in with. Still, I feel like its effects might not come up in every game though. Next there's Unbound Arrogance. This one's a weird mini game with your opponent. Choose a number between 1 and 3, and if your opponent chooses a different one, then you get that many attacks. I guess quite often that's going to equate to 2 extra attacks, but it's pretty annoying that it could fail if you get unlucky. Next up, we've got Faultless Duelist. Reroll hits in melee, and enemy models within engagement range get -1 attacks. I guess that's an alright combo of damage and defense. Glutton for Punishment gives you -1 damage if you're not a vehicle, and a 5+ save against mortal wounds. I think that one does seem quite fun actually, maybe on a Demon Prince or Terminator character. Again though, I'd weigh it up against the 5+ Feel No Pain that you can get just on the core table, which might well help you out more. Finally, there's Loathsome Grace for plus 2-inch movement, and you get to reroll advances and charges. I guess theoretically that might be able to give you a super speedy Demon Prince or Lord Discordant. Moves a bit faster, and use the Slanesh Prayer on them for a 2+ for advance and charge. Then you get to double dip on both benefits of that Warlord trait. I guess you'd give up a little bit of hitting power once you got to combat, but having a crazy spooky long threat range could be really quite nice to have. Out of these, as I mentioned, I'm just not super convinced most of these are great. Faultless Duelist doesn't seem terrible for a bit of damage and defense. Glutton for Punishment could be okay durability, though probably doesn't outweigh the Feel No Pain. I think out of any of them, Loathsome Grace is the most interesting. Big movement on hard-hitting characters is generally good. Moving on, let's get to the Relics of the Emperor's Children. First up, we've got Endless Grin, a 6+ Feel No Pain, and a 3+ chance to return from death at the end of the phase that it was killed, and you return to life with D3 wounds remaining. It is locked to infantry only unfortunately, but it might not be too bad on a scary Terminator character. Being a little bit tougher and getting a chance to have one last go once it dies seems like quite a good combo. Fatal Solency is a relic that I really quite like. At the end of your movement phase, roll 6d6. For each 4+, you get to inflict 1 mortal wound on 1 unit within 12 inches. It essentially equates to something like an extra pistol attack that just doles out 3 mortal wounds on average to your enemy. Really quite a hard-hitting little burst of damage. I think maybe the biggest issue is what you want to put it on. Things like Demon Princes or Lords Discordant will be good because they're fast and get close, but often they're going to be very tempted by different relics rather than getting a powerful mortal wound scream. Still though, if you can fire this once or twice over the course of a game, could be easily worth the 1 CP investment. Otherwise, we've got the Armour of Abhorrence. Non-Titanic units can't fall back on a 4+ within 3 inches of this model. Quite disruptive, and again Chaos players will be missing their jump pack characters, as that will be really nice to have on something fast moving that can just jump into combat with things. The Remnant of the Mara Vigilia is a once per game command phase thing. It gives you a 6-inch aura of +1 attack to core and characters, which would be really quite nice for a fighter unit like a Terminator squad. Only being once per game does kind of limit its potential though. Distortion is a relic power sword, force sword, or cursed weapon. Its strength ×2, AP -4, and damage 2. Really quite a nice generalist profile. And you can also swap it out for double the attacks at strength user, AP -2, and damage 1. I think it actually might be most interesting when put on a cursed weapon, say on a Terminator unit or a Chosen unit, if you've already got a unit with the black rune somewhere else. I feel for the most part characters are already going to have weapons that are almost similar effectiveness, but compared with a standard strength 5 cursed weapon, that's a rather big upgrade indeed. Finally, there's the Raiment Revulsive. That's an aura of 6 inches of performing actions while still shooting. Can be quite nice for your squads advancing up the board and still being able to plink away with shots, maybe things like Noise Marines or Terminator Combi Bolters. I think it is potentially useful, but there is a 2 CP stratagem to allow infantry to do that if you desperately need it, so unless you're sure that you're going to be needing to do the action with the unit every game and still needing to shoot, it might just be better to use that. Out of these, I feel that most of them are at least somewhat usable and you can make arguments for them. I think probably my favourite is still Fatal Solency. If you can get a character to the front lines for 2 or 3 turns, then it should dole out easily enough mortal wounds to make itself worth it. Moving on, I thought we'd take a look at the Emperor's Children unique units, Lucius the Eternal, and focus on Noise Marines as they're so much more relevant to them. Lucius, I think, is really quite a strong Chaos Lord, even if he's got a face that only a mother could love. He's 120 points and comes with a pretty decent fighty stat line, hitting on 2s, strength 5, toughness 4, a big 6 wounds and 5 attacks, leadership 10 and a 3+ save. Typically he's armed with a duelist sword, which would be attacking at strength 5, AP 3 and damage 2, but his stats are pretty deceptive really, as his Duelist's Pride rule kicks in if he ever contacts units that have got a 3+ weapon skill or better. His attacks casually go all the way up to 8, and they become damage 3 as well, so he becomes a real force to be reckoned with that'll dole out some massive hurts to things like Terminators. Between that and giving out a standard Lord's rerolls of 1 to hit, I think that's already quite a lot to be going on with, but he's got plenty of other things going for him as well. He carries a Doom Siren, that sonic weapon that's AP -3 and damage 2 if he gets within 6-inch range, really quite a scary threat. He's got built-in Fights Last with the Lash of Torment. It's really handy to have in any melee battle line, and that's another big selling point. And he also gets a few other fun things like the Armour of Shrieking Souls. If an enemy kills you, then you've got a good chance of dealing some mortal wounds back in return, presumably as the enemy transfigures themselves into Lucius. He's a very solid Chaos Lord for 120 points, perfectly reasonable to have slogging up the board alongside some Chosen or Terminators. Otherwise, we've got the Noise Marines. They aren't technically restricted to Emperor's Children, you can field them in other legions, but they're far more relevant in Emperor's Children as they become troops and get objectives secured. All the other Chaos troops have some pretty pitiful range damage to be honest, so it's quite nice to get a true ranged threat in the troop slot, and despite being primarily a shooter unit, they aren't even too terrible in combat either, fighting first and hitting on +1 to hit if you do take the Icon of Slanesh, which I think isn't too bad for a 5-point upgrade. Weapons-wise, most people seem to like taking a bunch of Sonic Blaster shots at their Assault 3, Strength 4, AP -1 and Damage 1 profile, and they get Damage 2 if they're in half range. I think the really big value thing in the squad though is the Blastmaster, 15 points for a general purpose anti-tank weapon, 3 shots at Strength 8, AP 3 and Damage 3. It does have an anti-infantry mode with some more shots, and if you get within half range you get +1 to the damage again, so damage 4 anti-tank shots hitting on 3s with the Emperor's Children Legion trait. Overall, a very solid and usable troops unit. I feel like they're a bit more niche in other legions when they're forced into elites and they don't get the Legion trait. In Emperor's Children, I think they're pretty scary. I feel like maybe multiple small units might be one of the easiest ways to go, that way you get more Blastmasters. I guess theoretically you could have a bigger unit pile out a Rhino or a Dreadclaw drop pod or something. So, putting things together then, what are some of the strongest options for the Emperor's Children, besides all the obvious good stuff for Chaos Marines in general? Obviously, there's plenty of datasheets that are just great on their own merit, things like Abaddon, Black Rune of Damnation, Terminators, and Masters of Possession. Specifically for the Emperor's Children, as already mentioned, both Lucius and Noise Marines are very usable indeed, maybe not auto-include good, but still very solid. Chaos Space Marine armies have plenty of melee options, and Emperor's Children are great with just about anything in melee. They've just got an awful lot of good support with their stratagems, and I think the Emperor's Children will have a lot of options when charging in some very fighty smash characters alongside some other big squads. More specifically, I think that both Possessed and Warp Talons will do well. They both like the extra AP for 6s to wound on the Legion trait, and Demonkin getting the Slanesh keyword means that they can be targeted by certain abilities, like that 5+ Feel No Pain spell. Havocs are an interesting option as they're going to be taking the Mark of Slanesh. You could use that stratagem to feed in an automatic 6 damage result, which is quite big, really quite good for las cannons or missile launchers. Terminators are good in just about every Chaos army, but they've got plenty of synergy with Slanesh here. With Honor the Prince, their threat range can be crazy long, and they really have a good time with Power Fists, ignoring the negative to hit. They could be quite fun coming out of Deep Strike as well, with that boosted charge roll from Honor the Prince, and I think Emperor's Children get on particularly well with the very effective Chaos Demon Smash characters, Demon Princes and Lords Discordant. Stratagems like that Fight Last one are absolutely great, as is the big 6-inch Heroic Intervention, and they're pretty good with some of the Slanesh relics or the Intoxicating Elixir for a Slanesh model. For the character upgrades, as mentioned, I wasn't super enthused by the Warlord traits, perhaps Loathsome Grace being one of the best ones to deliver them into battle, but out of the relics, the Endless Grin and Fatal Sonancy I both think are pretty decent, particularly the Sonancy Scream if you can keep them screaming all game long. Finally, I think that most of the stratagems are usable, though I don't think that you want to be overspending on all the damage dealing stratagems and just using all your CP straight away. Honor the Prince is excellent for the extra advance and the charge, maybe both if you're using the Dark Apostle Prayer. The 1 CP for Heroic Intervention is great on an army that almost all fights first with Mark of Slanesh, and 2 CP to fight last on a character could give the enemy a very nasty surprise. Overall, I think it adds up to them being a pretty strong legion with lots of good options. Finally, I thought we'd just take a look at one strong army list. One example of an army that's placed quite highly at a tournament. One of the most recent ones at time of recording was this list by Paul Roberts, who used it to take fourth at the Grand Onslaught GT, a fairly big tournament with over 50 players, and achieved a 4-1 victory record. The list is made up of 1 battalion detachment and a supremely command detachment for Abaddon the Despoiler. As the rest of the Marines are Emperor's children, every single corps and character unit takes a mark of Slaanesh, and they all get the Slaanesh keyword. Starting off with characters, Abaddon doesn't really need all that much explaining. He can justify himself literally just for the melee hits that he can make, never mind being able to make one unit reroll all hits on top of that. I guess a +1 to charges doesn't hurt either. Then there's 2 really fighty smash characters, 1 Demon Prince with wings, sword and warp time, and he takes Mantle of Traitors. He's going to be pretty lethal in his own right, and he could make use of some of those good stratagems that the Emperor's children have. Mantle of Traitors allows him to use an Epic Deed stratagem for 0 CP, which is quite good with the fight's last one, and it also gives 2 other very helpful abilities for him, allowing him to reroll hits in melee, and putting his reroll ones on one other unit anywhere on the board. Really quite a good all-rounder for a 1 CP investment, and Warp Time does have a lot of potential, maybe zooming those Terminators up the board super fast, although it could be pretty good for delivering Noise Marines into shooting positions as well. Next there's a Lord Discordant on Hellstalker, a pretty solid combat powerhouse that lots of lists are taking. They've got a Bale Flamer for the extra shots with Veterans of the Long War, Technovirus Injector for more damage against vehicles, takes the tried and tested Flames of Spite for reroll wounds and 6s cause mortal wounds on a whole bunch of attacks, and he's also got the Intoxicating Elixir as well. That's the one that means he can't take any more than 3 damage in one phase. It basically guarantees him 1 turn of life when he looks like he might get overwhelmed. Finally, there's a Dark Apostle with Illusory Supplication. That'll make the Terminators not be able to be hit on a 1 to 3. You can't reroll hit rolls against him, and he could also use the Slaanesh Prayer as well to make something advance and charge. Moving on, we've got 3 units of 5 Noise Marines, each of which takes 4 Sonic Blasters, 1 Power Fist, and a Blastmaster. As it goes, they are at least moderately pricey little troops units, these, 155 points each, but they do have at least some fairly solid threat both at range and in melee, and objectives secured as well. There's then another 10 Cultists, with Cultist firearms and 1 Flamer, maybe just for some grunt work like holding home field objectives maybe. The tried and tested 10 Terminators comes next, with the Black Rune of Damnation, very hard to kill and more so with Illusory Supplication on the go. This squad is really quite decked out, 2 Combi Melters which they'll be able to fire on the advance, hitting on 3s with the Legion trait, and then take the full complement of 8 Power Fists and Chain Fists, and the remaining 2 have dual accursed weapons, so they're really not skimping on the combat focus. I guess they're going to be zooming up the board pretty quickly. The Demon Prince could also cast the 5+ Feel No Pain spell on them as he is Slaanesh. Finally, we've got 2 fast moving units of Demonkin Melee, 1 unit of 5 Possessed, and 1 unit of 5 Warp Talons. Slightly more independent and low investment units that can just jump around the board bullying things. If they do need to overcome a hard target, then there's loads of melee stratagem options available. And finally, 1 Lonely Chaos Spawn, 25 points of quite an annoying little model to remove, can just go on to earn some objectives, and hopefully force the enemy to trade out something far more valuable. Overall, seems like a pretty well thought out list that's using quite a lot of Slaanesh's goodness. Good to see some solid use of Noise Marines, and lots of fists on the Terminators. Though I must admit I'm maybe not super surprised that this person hasn't chosen to take any of the specific Emperor's Children character upgrades. Good to see a solid performance for the Servants of the Dark Prince though. So I think we'll just about leave that there for the Emperor's Children then. By all means, if you think that I've missed any major combos out of the army, please let me know down in the comments below. Always interested to hear new combos and synergies. Or just let me know how you think that the Emperor's Children are stacking up for you in 9th edition. If you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more like it, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly be keeping the regular Chaos stuff coming. There'll be plenty more unit reviews, plus hopefully an overview of each and every legion. Feel free to subscribe or check back later if you'd like to see that. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that one down in the video description if you're interested. The channel's Patreon is what allows me to keep on making all these videos quite so regularly, so if you have been getting good value out of the channel, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.